The Trump administration has fired 20 immigration judges. This is an article from The Hill discussing this. This was posted late yesterday evening. They title it, Justice Department Fires 20 Immigration Judges. Report. The Trump administration dismissed 20 immigration judges over the weekend without explanation. Oh no, how dare they, as it continues its efforts to reduce the size of the federal government. This according to the Associated Press. Matthew Biggs, the president of the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers, a union representing immigration judges, naturally, said that the 13 judges who hadn't been sworn in yet and 5 assistant chief immigration judges were fired on Friday without warning. Oh no. He added that 2 additional judges had been let go in the same manner last week. He said, you have a president now who campaigned on immigration and removing people from the country on the one hand, and on the other hand, he's actually firing the very judges that have to hear these cases and make these decisions. So it makes no sense. It's a head scratcher. But is it? Is it really a head scratcher? I'd argue that no, it's not. See, I completely disagree with the good Matthew Biggs here. I actually think there are 2 potentially solid reasons why the Trump administration would be firing these judges. Hear me out. First, and perhaps the most obvious reason why they are doing this is that the judges' loyalty to the U.S. and to the Trump administration is in deep question. You see, the majority of these judges were appointed in late December of 2024 and early January 2025, during the final days of the Biden administration. These are what are known as midnight appointments. They were made just before the change in the administration. This was part of a larger push that the Biden administration was doing to thwart Trump. Trump has to know this. We know, for example, that the Biden administration rushed a lot of moves in their final days, all set to stop Trump from implementing his agenda. They were trying to thwart the transition of power in any way that they could. I'll give you a couple of examples. First, there was the environmental protections moves that they made in order to stop Trump's drill baby drill plan. The Biden team enacted a law to protect extensive federal waters from oil drilling, covering regions in Alaska, Florida, California, and along the East Coast. This was a thumb in the eye of the Trump administration. There were 2 areas in California, for example, that were designated as national monuments, preventing any mining operations. Essentially all scumbaggery to get in the way of Trump's plan. Then you had immigration measures that were also taken by the Biden administration. They tried to give hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens temporary protected status to force the U.S. government to let them stay in the U.S. for another 18 months. Now, the Trump administration immediately rescinded this, but that's what they tried to do. And then there was the federal workforce. The Biden administration extended remote work options for federal employees until 2029. Again, an attempt to thwart Trump, who had already announced that he was going to make them all come back into the office. And as part of this, thwarting Trump's plan, they pushed through collective bargaining agreements. They negotiated last-minute deals that included one at the Social Security Administration, which guaranteed that 42,000 employees would not have to come into the office during the Trump administration. So all of this stuff was going on as a way to say F you to Trump. And of course, there was then the immigration judges. Appointing them just before leaving office is a massive red flag. Obviously, the Trump administration would want to do something about this. You don't know who these judges are and what they plan to do and why they're there. And there was a lot more of this, by the way. There were a lot of other efforts to thwart the Trump administration by the outgoing Biden admin. So there can be no doubt that these judges were part of that plan. The Trump administration has taken the time to try and undo, wherever possible, the Biden administration's thwarting efforts. And this includes some legal challenges that are underway right now. Trump will not be stopped by these people. So that would be the most obvious first reason why the Trump administration would want to fire all of these judges. But there is something else to consider here. If you are Donald Trump, and you know that you have to keep your biggest, most public promise to the American people, and that is mass deportation of all these criminal aliens infesting the country at a number greater than 22 million, well, how do you achieve this? Well, one of the greatest roadblocks in Trump's way has been the built-in immigration court system. It is designed purposely so as a system that would take forever to process. The immigration court system is made to be complex. It is made to be heavy and slow. The court system essentially would allow illegal aliens to just stay in perpetuity in the U.S. And in that time, as you have all these people stuck waiting to see a judge, the numbers would continue to grow. This would eventually make it so overwhelming, so big, that you could go to the American people and say, oh, golly gosh, gee, all these people are stuck here. Might as well make them citizens, right? It's not fair. They're paying taxes. They're paying their fair share. Just give them amnesty so we can get their votes. The Trump administration has to be considering how to overcome this. Now, there is a tool in the toolbox for Trump to use, and it is called Expedited Removal. Expedited removal, my friends, is a streamlined deportation process that allows U.S. immigration officials to quickly remove certain illegal aliens from the country without needing a formal hearing before an immigration judge. This little doozy of a law was created back in 1996 as part of the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act. This allows low-level immigration officers to summarily remove certain non-citizens without a hearing. This means no judges are needed. Now, initially, this law applied to only non-citizens arriving at ports of entry without proper documentation or those caught attempting to enter through fraud or misrepresentation. But it was later expanded to include those who entered by sea and who have been in the U.S. for less than 2 years. And very quietly under the radar, it was updated again just 3 days into the Trump presidency this year. So January 23rd, 2025. This update now applies this law to anyone who entered without legal permission within the last 2 years, regardless of their distance from the border. This means that there are millions and millions of people who crossed the border in just the last 2 years alone that they will be able to legally boot out of the country without needing to go through the courts. And the best part is, the people that can do this are ICE officers and Border Patrol agents. People who have skin in the game for kicking these people out and preventing them from entering the country in the first place. This is an enormous deal and something that I just don't seem to hear a lot of people discussing right now. But mark my words, you're going to hear a lot more about this in the coming months once the Trump administration begins enacting a much larger deportation scheme. And it's only a matter of time before they do. Now, here's essentially how the expedited process works. You're able to get immigration officers from both ICE and the Border Patrol to act as both prosecutors and judges. Illegal aliens are typically deported within a single day of their ruling. So oftentimes within hours of being told, nope, you got to go, they can kick them right the hell out. And another wonderful thing about this law is it limits the opportunity for these people to collect evidence or consult with an attorney, meaning you don't have to waste days, weeks, or months to build a case to prove why you got to kick them out. Now, this law does not apply to U.S. citizens, those that are here lawfully with permanent resident status, or admitted refugees or unaccompanied minors. The consequences of getting booted this way is a 5-year ban to reentry the country in most cases. And the decisions by these ICE and Border Patrol officers cannot normally be appealed. All big wins for the Trump team. The Trump administration has also expanded the use of this law for expedited removal so that it now applies to nationwide illegal aliens who cannot prove continuous presence in the U.S. for the past 2 years. All of this is happening behind the scenes. So let's go back to the judge firings. With fewer judges, this means there will be a much greater push to use the acceleration process. This will lead to a massive increase in deportations without being stuck in the endless charade that is the legal proceedings for immigration courts. This Biggs character in this Hill article, he's either unaware of this or he's purposely hiding this fact from the readers of this publication rag, The Hill. So, to Mr. Biggs here, the only real head scratcher, in my opinion, is you. Let's continue with this article, shall we? Anyway, they go on to write that the immigration court system is severely overwhelmed with over 3.7 million pending cases, resulting in lengthy delays. Asylum applications can particularly take years to resolve. Not for much longer, my friends. Now, despite bipartisan support for increased staffing, including additional judges and support personnel, the Trump administration's push for expedited case resolution put extra pressure on already burdened court judges. Under the Trump administration, key changes occurred at the Executive Office of Immigration Review recently, including the replacement of the acting director, Mary Cheng. The current director, Sears Owen, a former immigration judge, has introduced many new policies that contradict those of the Biden administration. Exactly. Carrie Doyle, an immigration judge who was appointed recently, stated on LinkedIn that she and the other Biden-appointed judges were informed of their termination via email last Friday. Oh, that is fantastic. Before this appointment, Doyle held the position of Deputy General Counsel for the Department of Homeland Security under the Biden administration. Carrie said, this firing occurred despite the fact that the immigration court currently has in the neighborhood of 3.5 million pending cases, and the Department of Justice is asking Congress for more money to hire more people at EOIR. Yeah, but just not you. Not anyone that worked with the Biden administration, because again, sabotage is quite likely. And by the way, this isn't everything that the Trump administration is doing. I'll have to expand on this in a future episode, but I believe that this all relates to the buildup towards mass deportation. There is a reason why the Trump administration is starting with criminal gang aliens, for example, for their deportation and arrests right now. It's all about defeating the Democrat Party and their sanctuary cities in all the court battles that are likely to follow. So rather than trying to get everyone now, when you know it's going to be hung up in the courts, get it out of the way with the criminals that nobody really has any sympathy for. All Americans know that those who come into this country, not only illegally, but then go on to commit other crimes, need to be kicked the hell out. There is no sympathy for almost 90% of the American people to those who commit crimes once here. So once you get all of this stuff out of the way, there's no more opposition. Now the door will then be opened for true mass deportation in numbers that we have not seen since Operation Wetback, which for those who aren't familiar with Operation Wetback, this was under President Dwight D. Eisenhower back on June 9th of 1954. The U.S., in a matter of months, deported over 1 million illegal aliens and sent them back to Mexico. So you can bet on it, my friends. There are steps being taken to mirror this and outdo it. And the stage is nearly set for the hammer to drop.